Hey everyone, welcome back to JP's Budget Collecting and another episode of the Indie Show. We're talking more Black Science tonight. I got my man Greg, who's been with me for all Black Science here again. Volume 3. Are you hyped? Are you ready to go, Greg?
I'm excited for this show just to talk about, to see if you guys can convince me if I like it or if I don't like it.
Well, you just said you guys, but this has just been us for like 2 episodes. But our man, life is finally like maybe not quite in the way. He was able to get caught up with us. He was going to join us from the beginning, but he's caught up, ready to go. Our man, Unruly Simeon's joining us tonight. What's going on, sir?
I'm here. I'm not queer, but I have no fear.
There you go. So yeah, we are into volume 3 of Black Science, and I am very interested to see how Greg feels about this volume. But I want to know, before we dig in here, you've caught up, so you've recently read all 3 volumes. You've caught up. What are just your initial thoughts for the first 2 volumes before we go into this? Because you didn't get to join us. What are you thinking as you read this? What are your thoughts on this overall?
Well, I watched the first episode. My thoughts are very similar to what Greg was saying. That first issue, I was kind of like the first issue and a half, 2 issues. I was like, what the I didn't know. But exactly like you said, Remender deserves a long tryout given his track record. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I'm digging it. I'm digging it. The art is solid, but it's not my favorite by any means. But overall, I have a theory, and I'm like y'all. I don't know if y'all have read ahead. I've just read to the end of the 3rd volume. I have
not gotten any further.
Same.
But later on, after we get past this, I've got a theory I want to throw at y'all.
All right, nice. We will look forward to that. All right. So, Greg, what you said you're waiting for us, so maybe I shouldn't maybe I'll give my thoughts, just general thoughts on the 3rd volume here. I'm still hooked. I'm still in. I will say we've started down a little bit of a path of like where I went with Breaking Bad, and the fact that I've kind of got to the point I don't actually like any of these people. So it's a little harder to care about some of them. If it wasn't for the 2 kids, I don't know how much I would actually care about what happens to these idiots at this point. But we will see as we get into this. Greg, what about you? What are your thoughts just generally on this 3rd volume before we dive in here?
I'm enjoying it still. There are some issues that I'm starting to have with the book. I agree with you to an extent on the characters that I don't like. There is still one that I like that's not one of the kids. And we can get into that here a little bit later. But I'm enjoying it still. I'm still liking it. I don't know if I'm loving it.
All right. Well, let's dig in, see what we think.
Yeah.
So we left this at the end of volume 2, and everything had kind of got onto crap. They basically left 2 pillars with the little spirit creatures had a pillar, and the people they were running from, the little lizard folk kind of things, had a pillar, and they just had the broken pillar. And Rebecca had killed Sam or Grant 2, and we weren't sure if we had Grant 1 back or if it was a different Grant. And so we pick up as they land at a new location. And we do get the backstory on our returning Grant and how he's alive and how he managed to find his way back to them. What did you think of this? I mean, it's a pretty quick 4-page, basically, flashback to get us how Grant caught up with them. Greg, what did you think about just the backstory on how our Grant survived and how he got back to him?
First, I was glad they threw that in there. I already knew I was right last episode. Right, Grant, and I brought you on board later. You came around.
You did, yeah.
But it was just good to solidify that I was right. And we didn't need to spend a lot of time. I didn't need a lot of time. Like, I'm glad I didn't spend an issue getting to know how we got back there because that part was insignificant to me. Like, give me an idea, like give me a little bit like they did of that's where Remender with the storytelling, he gives you enough information there to say, okay, I can understand how that happened. I'm cool with it because I don't care about it now that we already know he's there. Like,
Right.
I feel like someone that's maybe newer in a comic book game would have taken the time to spend an entire issue there, and we don't need that. And so I appreciate that from the craftsmanship because it got right into moving the story along, which needed to happen.
Yeah, I would agree with everything you said. What about you, Unruly? What did you think about the reveal that it was the original Grant, at least of our tale, I should say?
Yeah, because I've lost track of the Grants at this point. We're only 12 issues in.
Yeah.
But you're exactly right. They didn't need to spend a whole lot of time. So they spend those 4 pages, and then we jump right in and with 4 words, back to this mess.
Yeah. And it is a mess. I mean, it is like we are quickly like if he didn't drive home previously, like how sort of a bad idea this whole thing is, like, and the dangers that come with it. This issue is very much like all about that in terms of the dangers of jumping around without knowing for sure what you're doing, and only takes one mistake. And I mean, they've been jumping around without their helmets and everything else and doing all this, making all the same mistakes that it seems like every version has made. But yeah, we jump back into the mess, and we got a dead Grant 2, and we got Sarah 2 threatening to kill Rebecca, and we got a giant cluster of. We got the random kid they kidnapped. We still got the shaman. Everybody else. What did you think of this whole sequence that leads to Sarah and Pia running off? I mean, it's just they're a giant cluster of just arguments and blame and guilt and. Yeah. So what did you think of this whole sequence here that kind of drives what happens in this volume? Because it's basically setting up Sarah and Pia getting separated so that the others Grant and Sean can go look for them, and sets up everything that happens through this volume. What did you think about the setup here, Greg?
So I'm okay with the setup, right? I know your biggest issues going into this was hoping that it wasn't going to be a race to beat the clock, right? So let's stay in the world for a while. Yeah. Let's stay here and figure out. I will say this: I've been a fan of the art of Mateus Scalera's art, but I will bring up something that I know Unruly, you said you aren't. It's fine, kind of. Here's my biggest frustration with this book and then with the art for me is Rebecca, Sarah, and Pia all look way too much alike.
Yeah,
and so it's hard. It is very hard for me as a reader to know which one is which at the moment. And then you throw in multiple variations of these ladies who look very similar alike. It takes me out of the book a little bit sometimes because I have to pause while I'm reading and go, wait, okay, was that Pia that shot? No, wait, that was Rebecca that shot. Like I've done that way too many times reading the last volume and now this volume that it takes it out a little bit. And now I'm noticing things like certain earrings that one wears, so I can kind of start to piece them together here. And I think Pia has a nose ring. So there's moments where I'm starting to learn how to justify them, but I'm just like, and just give the girl the daughter who doesn't like being there, give her a punk rock hair or something, change the hair color a little bit. It just, for me, that it's taking me out of the story a lot because I already have to pause a lot going, wait, which variation of Grant or which variation of Sean is this? And so my mic just clicked in
or something. There was a weird back feed of sound there just for a second.
All right. Well, no, my mic's still not working. So
No,
sorry, gang. My Yeti is messing up on me, so I don't know what's going on. But
no, you sound good. It was just a weird. Got a little feedback just for a second. I thought maybe that was the mic coming on.
I thought so too, but it's
yeah.
not. So if it does, let me know, and I'll
Okay.
keep it checked. But yeah, that's my knock right now. So I don't mind the setup. It's just taking me out of it a couple times because of not being able to figure out who's who, and that's not necessarily Mateo's fault. It's it's part of it is my fault of just I'm too stupid sometimes to figure it out. But
Well, I don't know about that. I do think in this one, like it didn't bother me as much, I don't think, this time, because they did kind of separate them. And Sarah being in the blue outfit made it a little easier to tell her and Rebecca. But there are some shots here, right? Like Pia's supposed to have shorter hair, but he doesn't always draw it where it's clear how long the hair is. So yeah, her and they all look way too much alike. I told Unruly before we got started that clearly Grant has a type.
And I wondered, was that part of it? Like, are we going to get something where it's the kid is Sarah's? And I don't think so. But I wondered if that was part of it.
Yeah, I think he just likes women with dark hair, and Sclera does not really define them well enough here for sure. What about you, Unruly? What do you think of the setup here as before we dive into the rest of this volume?
I guess it serves the plot, but Mom running off like that, Sarah running off like that, no. I mean, they've bounced through how many dimensions trying to save their kids or a version of their kids, and her and the dead Grant are adamantly opposed to this dimension hopping. She's got to know running off is not going to lead to anything good.
Yeah.
But she just saw her husband killed.
Yeah.
I do like this world. I do like the fact that they're spending a little time there. Because I'm a Roman history buff, so I would have liked to seen a little more of that. But it is what it is. We're going to get the versions of the worlds that he can write. What is interesting to me, though, is thinking about Family Guy, and did y'all ever see the show Sliders?
Mm-mm.
Yeah, that was a long time ago, but yeah.
They had a dimension device, and of course their homing mechanism. The homing mechanism to your home dimension always gets broke.
Yeah.
In these stories. Yeah. And yet somehow miraculously you manage to find your way back out of infinite possibilities.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, we haven't yet, but we'll see. But
if no one remembered, they damn well might not.
Yeah, who knows?
Right.
None of us have read all of this. So they run off. Sarah runs off. Pia runs after her. Grant and Sean go after him. And yeah, we get introduced to this world where they're instantly, that's kind of like a futuristic. We had like futuristic Native Americans and Germans previously, and we're getting they're using language like Roman legions and so it's like a futuristic version of Rome in this world. But they're instantly, from the moment they see the logo, they're being hunted.
Right.
And these people are out for blood, and you should not be alive, and they're burning corpses, and it's what is going on? And we quickly find out, I love that the line is, what the hell happened here? And Grant's, this page, we did. Not them necessarily individually, but a version of them. What did you think about the big reveal here of what happened to this world? I guess we don't quite get the full reveal in this one, but again, they clearly, another version of them has been hopping and caused more trouble and drama. Unruly, I'll let you go first this time.
Exactly. So by my count, this is either Grant number 3 or Grant number 4 that is responsible for the disease that has ravaged this world.
Yeah.
Or as he puts it, one of my dimensionauts, Guinevere, contracted a virulent virus from the last jump. Well, so I'm digging it. I'm digging it, man. I can see. I want to tell you my theory, but it's not quite time. But
Not quite time. Yeah.
That reveal where he looks down and sees the logo on the floor. What happened here? We did.
Yeah.
And that sort of becomes a theme as we go along in this volume.
And this volume, it is very much of we did. Like, what happened here, and like, what are they going to do? What is their mission going forward? Is it lost in space? We got to get home, or is it we got to fix what all of these grants are breaking? And so, yeah, it's a very. I would say this volume is very much we don't get the final answer, but it's very much a turning point in terms of where they're going to go with this story and their mission. What did you think of this reveal, the We Did page here, and their realization of how they effed over this universe pretty badly, Greg? What did you think of this?
Yeah, you guys can hear me okay now, right?
Yeah.
So
No, you're
okay,
good.
cool. All right. So I like this. I do. This was a turning point for me where I go, maybe I didn't realize it right away, but this started it for this volume for me, where I was like, we're not lost in space. That was my biggest fear with this going forward, was we're just going to keep jumping. There's not going to be this through line. Well, now it is. We've gotten that there's all these different multiverses or dimensions, and that they're jumping through. And we're starting to see the groundwork being laid of the storyline is, do we just keep worrying about ourselves, or do we try to figure out something else for other versions of ourselves of what they're doing? Again, we don't get that right on this issue, but that's where this issue starts to lay that groundwork for us. And I think that is a more intriguing and compelling storyline to me than just jumping around trying to get back home. There's a little bit more depth now to the story that Remender is telling here with the team, to say, because you're going to get a whole bunch of different opinions on we should, we shouldn't. It's not really us that's doing it. And I think that makes it, if you're going to utilize all these characters and variations of these characters, I think this is a very smart way to do it.
Yeah, I agree. I think for me, that was, like I said, had been my complaint, was we were just like, everything was against the clock until we jumped away to the next one. And this puts a little more depth. And he kind of had said that a little bit in the previous volume. Granted, had a couple lines about that, going to the center and fixing this. And and we get that they're starting to, like, this thing that's out of control jumping, the pillar they're using, it's taking easiest pass. So it's going to places where they've already jumped. Other versions have already jumped and screwed things up. And like, it's why it's getting sucked into the worlds it is. So yeah, I do think it adds, because I was going to be hard pressed to follow 9 volumes of, hey, we're lost, we're going to try to get home. Right. This really helped that for me, at least. So that takes us into issue 13, and we start getting some of the backstory here of how Grant kind of effed up his family. How this obsession has played out, what it's done to his family. We see him in an argument with Sarah where he says, maybe I don't want you, maybe I don't want any of you, and he realizes the kids are listening. We get to see how, before we get to the reveal, Unruly talked about, like, how he's just kind of effed up everything he's touched a little bit, at least in his personal life, to pursue this goal. And now this goal is effing up everything he touches. So what do you think of our, like, because we also get, and maybe jump ahead just a touch, later we get, Rebecca's seduction of him when he's ready to leave, so we're getting some of the background of how he's kind of, the mistakes that he's made all along the way. What do you think of these kind of background pieces for Grant, Unruly?
Yeah, he is. He's just a self-absorbed piece of POS, basically.
Yeah.
And his iteration. What and something you talked about, Greg, about having trouble keeping them apart. All right, so in the beginning of this, Sarah too is holding a gun to Rebecca's head. Do they know the truth, Rebecca? Why you've used them all? Please. All right, then later on in this issue, when Pia catches Sarah and they start talking, you're my mom. Don't push me away. You're all that I have. Oh, dear God, Pia, if I were your mother, you'd be dead already. I've reread this. I've read it twice today. The first time I read it, I forgot it was Pia going after Sarah. And when Sarah says, if I were your mother, you'd be dead already, I thought it was Rebecca.
Oh, yeah.
It wasn't until a damn reread that I got that straight in my mind.
Yeah.
Because they look so dang much alike.
They look a ton alike. It is a little confusing for sure.
But the backstory is good because, you know, later on he starts ruminating, or he's doing it now actually in the flashback, about how screwed up he is. And maybe he's actually having a real moment of self-realization. Well, obviously he does, given a choice he makes coming up real soon.
Yeah. What about you, Greg? What did you think of?
So this is where we start to get to the Breaking Bad, like you were talking about for me. Like, I'm like, I don't like you, Grant, like as a character. And I get, again, it's not a deal breaker for me yet, because I want to see you sometimes some of your least favorite characters become your favorite characters if you watch TV shows long enough, right? Or read a series long enough. Like, how many times have we watched a character that we go, we can't stand, we hate them, like they're a horrible person, and then season 2 or season 3, you're like, oh my goodness, like I'm actually rooting for this one. Yeah. So I'm okay with that. I really don't like Grant. I don't like how he's handling his kids and how he's dealing with the kids, and I think me, just as a father of 2 young kids right now, like that plays into it. Like those storylines get me a little bit more. Where I'm like, bro, like and he's even used as a line in there of like that it makes it like that he was forced to have kids and like this life almost to a degree. And I'm like, you do, and unless I don't know something, but I'm like, you do know that you have an active part in having these kids, like, so like you can't. And so like there's that for me where I start to go, I don't like Grant. Now again, we get a little bit of, we get to see where they want to take that story a little bit further, but this is the backstory where I'm going like, dude, you're digging your own grave here.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, he has the whole time. This is all. I mean,
yeah.
To a large degree, whatever you want to blame on Kadir and Rebecca and anybody else that's played a part here, this is mostly Grant's fault. And it's clear it's mostly Grant's fault because in every universe, Grant is responsible for all of these things that are happening. So, so after that, we get kind of 2 main scenes in this particular issue. We get Grant and Sean realizing what killed these people, the plague, and that they're both probably contaminated, and realizing they need to get back to the shaman. But Sean also realizing, hey, there's a pillar here that we can steal parts from to actually fix ours. So we get that sequence. And then the second half of this issue is the Sarah Pia conversation, where they're, and they look exactly alike, other than hair length, which is fine. They're mother and daughter. It's no big deal. And they're they're at least in different outfits, unlike Pia and Rebecca. But and we get a little bit of Pia's backstory about like how she's rebelled and everything she's went through, and we get the line about Sarah and like if you were mom and how much you can tell how much this Sarah loved her kids and how much Pia cares about the Sarah we've still yet to actually really meet, which is their actual mom and the universe they're from. What did you think of anything stand out about these 2 sequences for you guys? Greg, I'll let you go first.
Pia's backstory there, that got me, like that wrecked me a little bit. But then also Sarah's, Sarah's, how she reacted to it. That also got me. So I'm liking the, where Remender is setting this up with Pia, and, to be we see this of a lot in, not a lot. We saw this a lot in Deadly Class, right? Putting young people in horrible situations.
Right.
And so we get a little bit of that as well here, of we're starting to see, like, she, basically her mom was a solo parent, and she's, Pia's trying to balance being a kid. And so I'm liking this backstory, but this backstory also is causing me to not like Grant even more.
Right. Oh yeah. I mean, Grant does not come off well at all in the backstory.
No.
Like, yeah, he's effed all this up for sure. What about you, Unruly? Anything stand out to you from these two sequences here? Is the realization that the Grant from this world poisoned it, and that, and then the conversation between Sarah and Pia.
Well, you said earlier we haven't got to see the original Sarah much, but we got a glimpse of her here.
Yeah.
When she picks her daughter up from the drug house, I guess, or the party house, and brings her home. And so she might have been not the greatest, most present mom in the world, but there's no doubt she genuinely loves her kids.
Yeah, for sure. So this ends with them getting found, and apparently both getting burned, which is what they're doing to all these diseased people. So we jump. The next issue jumps right into, after the terrible scene here of, like, it looks like she's going to get burned. It jumps into Grant scrambling to get back to his daughter. And, like, this is the thing that, like, I go a little back and forth on Grant a little bit, because you're like, because I agree, like, he is just an F up, and this is literally all his fault. But you see that he, like, now that it's like he's realizing too late what he's lost and what he's potentially about to lose, like, and how big of he's coming to the realization of how big of an F up he is here as he goes and tries to save his daughter. And so what did you think of this sequence of him scrambling to get to her, him and Sean trying to save her? What did you think about that sequence, Unruly? I'll let you go first this time.
Yeah, this is straight up, superhero shit that we're getting to enjoy right here. Yeah. And I dig what you're saying. Even though Grant is ultimately responsible for all this and is a selfish prick, that doesn't make him a complete asshole.
Right.
Everyone has made horrible life decisions. Some of us just make them for 20 or 30 years. And it's like Kadir says at some point, he goes, hey, look, just because I'm an asshole doesn't mean I have murderous intent.
Right.
Motives and actual actions can sometimes vary wildly,
Yeah.
But I'm digging it. I'm the more I'm reading this, the more I'm enjoying it. But you're right. Aside from the kids, there is only one person in this whole story I give a remote shit about.
I'm curious if they're still alive after we get to the end of this. So we'll see. So we will see. What about you, Greg? What do you think of this? Like him thinking about her, him remembering all his F ups as he's scrambling to try to save his daughter. What did you think about this whole sequence here, and him and Sean at least saving her for the moment?
So because this is in the you're talking about in issue 14 where you see the flashbacks. So
I think we're in issue 14. I don't know.
Yeah, because it just starts.
14.
I don't know. I'm still like, dude, Grant. If his kids weren't his kid wasn't in peril. I get it. Things change. I just, I don't know. That doesn't make me change my opinion on him yet.
Well, no,
so.
I'm not saying it makes. Yeah, I get that. I totally get that. I don't. So
And you know, like to Unruly's point, like, yeah, we've all made mistakes and we've all messed up. But like, you know, as an unhealthy parent, you know, sometimes you have toxic people that you need to just cut out. And I'm like, man, Grant's a toxic person. And like how he acts, how he is with Sarah, how he is with the kids, and so like it's gonna do. I need a little bit more redemption than him just
he's got a
remembering.
long way to go.
Yeah. And so like it's at this point, I'm like, I'm fine with it, but it doesn't do anything emotionally for me because, in my opinion, like maybe after 4 more volumes of him understanding and stepping up to the plate to do stuff, then I might be like, you know what? Okay. Then it holds weight. Right now, for me, I'm like, nah, I don't like you right now, Grant.
Well, I guess I didn't mean to imply that it made me like him. It does give like you see him going through in his mind of like he's reliving like, God, how much I've effed this up, and that, you know, and it took basically them being in peril for him to stop taking for granted what he had, like in any way, shape, or form. And you can argue he still is to a certain degree. Like it's still about him ultimately, like even in this sequence. So it's still about, oh, I've screwed this up. Oh, I've met, you know, she can't die because of me, and it's still to a certain degree about him, and that's So I totally get where you're coming from. I just thought I thought it's well played. Is that they're giving you enough of him for me at least. They're giving you enough of him realizing just how bad what he's done, to start heading him toward maybe some level of redemption, not maybe complete. That I don't just like hate his guts. I don't like him, but I don't just like, all right, I can't. I don't want to read any more about you.
I don't disagree, and I don't want to. I guess we can get into this a little bit more, but there's, you know, in the last issue again of this volume, there's a flashback where it basically makes me go right back to like where you think he's.
Oh yeah, because you're not getting you're getting the different aspects of the story at different times. Yeah.
Yeah, and then so I'm like, and I'll get into that, but that, because I've read that affects my opinion on this flashback.
Yeah. Well, we already knew he was having an affair, but
right. But it doesn't affect the story in any place. So I'll just hit that. What my issue with that flashback though is it's him realizing that he's missed volleyball games, or softball games. He's missed all these things. He was taking, you know, Nathan to karate, and then he stopped. He doesn't even know if he's still going. And he's like, I got to end this. And literally he's like, falls for Rebecca then. And like, it's like, you just talked about all these reasons why you need to do this. And you're like, but you're pretty. So I'm going to ignore all the stuff that so like for me, that because that happened after this issue of this flashback.
Well, you were told it happened about it after, but it happened previously.
Right. But you
were told about it later.
But again, to me, that's showing signs of a systemic behavior of, oh, I realize that I messed up and I need to do this. Oh, well, I'm going to go to do what pleasure, what pleases me.
That he's made the bad choice multiple times, which we will get to in a minute, because it plays a big part in how this finale wraps up. Right. Somebody else realizing that, no, you people just keep making bad choices.
Right.
And so we jump back. So they got to figure out a way to get back to the pillar, because the Legionnaires know they're there and are hunting them. And we get a nice 1-page scene, I think, of our other two. I don't know if you really can call them villains here, but the people that are kind of, I guess the only difference here, as I do see, is like Rebecca has blue eyes. I guess that's really the difference, that he makes sure to point that out a lot, but like in the way the art is. But of Kadir and Rebecca and their argument, yeah, like, and the fact that they've both, caused a lot of this. What did you think? I thought this was a really good page for these two characters. What did you think? Not in terms of redeeming them, but just like a really good of showing who these two people are. On this one page, you guys know the page I'm talking about.
There's just the one page right after the title page.
The one page right after the big spread page.
Yeah,
where they're arguing with each other, and he's like, "You don't care about him either, do you? Those things Sarah said about you." She's like, "Lie." She's like, "What could be bad enough to give a decade for this to tear Grant's family?" She's like, "I'm not the one who made you pine for a man's wife." Like, I mean, they're just going at each other. Yeah, and it's basically that neither of them actually care about anybody but themselves. Here is really what you're getting.
Nobody does.
No.
Well,
really.
Kadir at least has enough honor to try and keep his promise at first.
Yep. Yeah, and I think this was a good setup to remind me, because even it doesn't play into it yet still, but I forgot past things that were mentioned already about Rebecca, that then I'm rereading this, I'm going, oh, okay.
About her brother and stuff.
Yeah,
what her true motivation is here. So Sean and Grant make it back with Pia, and like, I knew the shaman had really good healing abilities, but like, this little box he has could literally like fix anything. Like,
right?
Like a handy thing to have.
Like, talk about a MacGuffin of like, oh, we're just gonna be we got this now. So yeah, because it cures Nate of being diabetic, and it like basically cures Pia here of both the disease and the burns. Although I guess she'll be easier to tell apart now because her hair is burned off.
Right.
Although I think even by the end, it's almost like her hair has grown back already. Like, if I'm not mistaken, or maybe they're just back in their helmets. And you can't tell. So yeah. Meanwhile, Sean is back, and he and Rebecca start trying to fix the pillar, and they're gonna go. But Sean makes his little stand and plea that they can't leave this world the way the other versions of them effed it up, because they have the magic healing box. I don't know that it actually has a name. So what do you guys think of this discussion? And again, another decision by Grant to like, I don't know what I think. Like, he's making a decision again to potentially leaving his children to try to fix this, but he also knows that like he's sort of responsible for what's happened to this world. So like, where do you fall on his choice here? Like, he's kind of in a there's no right choice here, I don't think.
No.
So what do you think of this choice that he makes to try to save this world that's trying to actively kill him and potentially leave his children again? And I can see Greg's like, oh. So I'm going to make Greg stew on it for a second and ask him really first. What do you make of Grant's after Sean guilts him of his choice here?
Yeah, if Sean doesn't say anything, that this never happened.
Exactly.
And it shows you what a creature of impulse this cat is, as we see in the later flashback.
The flashback Greg's talking about. Yeah.
That y'all already alluded to. Yeah. So, but you're exactly right. He hasn't redeemed himself yet, but I'm not hating on Grant at all.
Right.
Because let's face it, without Grant, we don't have this comic book.
This is true. Well said. Well said. All right, Greg, what do you got? You ready to unload? Let's go. Both barrels.
Here's the deal. You guys both alluded to it already. Like, he's The only reason he's doing something redemptive in this book is because Sean forces him to. Sean's like, and Sean is the other character now that I care about, because Sean really kind of has kind of been the non-player in this series so far. Like, he makes the dad joke quips and things like that, but here he is his little moment like Nathan did in the last volume where he stands up and he's like, you're like, oh, okay. Sean has a little bit of a backbone here. Sean says, hey, this is what we need to do. And so I guess for me, it feels unjarring of unrealistic. Maybe it's just because I'm so anti-Grant right now that if he cares so much about his kids and he doesn't want to lose them, he just had his daughter left and she got burned, and he's like, cool, I'm gonna go leave and put other people ahead of my kids again, in this mindset of, and again, I'm placing my own biases on Grant as a reader now. Like, I get it, I know what I'm doing. I'm judging him and I'm judging his character on what I've seen so far. But for me, it is, I would have liked it a little bit more if Sean went and did this, even though I know he needed to stay back and fix it, and Grant stayed with his kids, because he's like, listen, I know you want to do this, Sean, you want to do the right thing, but I'm not leaving my kids again in a world that I don't know anything about, where we're being hunted. Like, that just feels, it's a selfish impulse to me, because I can't picture. I'm just like, dude, your kid just got burned because you weren't there to protect her, and you're putting everyone else in charge to protect your kids, like Kadir and him. It's like, at some point you need to do it. And so this is where I'm starting to go, I don't know if I like this story, because I get it, we don't have the story without Grant, but I don't like where it's going right now with Grant.
So I'm going to attempt to give you just a slightly more balance on this.
Go for it. Please do.
Like, I get completely where you're coming from, because I was also like, dude, what are you doing? You're leaving them again. But he has a couple lines in here, and it's like, okay, to me, he's dealing with the fact that he's effed up so much. Like, at this stage, like, he's effed up his family, he's effed up, and he appears to have effed up the multiverse. And so he's in this weird place, because even when he's talking before Sean, he's like, I'm going to take you guys home, and then I'm going to try to fix this. Like, even then, because he's talking about get them home, and then I got to fix what I've done. And Sean's like, we're here now, we need to fix what's happened here. Like, because maybe you don't ever get back here to, like, fix this. And so I understand his compulsion to be like, okay, like, here's a mistake. I have a tool. Here's a mistake I can try to fix. Like, I can try to save this world. But I'm with you. I lean toward with you in terms of, there's like 4 other people standing around. Like, hey, shaman, like, the shaman's very much like, we can't go anymore. Or like, and he gets into his argument later, like, we got to cure the thing. Why doesn't Grant stay and try to fix the device? And if you fix the device completely, the 5 minutes no longer matter, because, like, if you manage to fix it and you can control where it's going and when it's going, like, fix the device and let somebody else, like, I don't know. I go back and forth. I get his choice here because he feels like he's responsible, but he's also, and he's leaving his kids with with people he thinks can protect them. But yeah, I'm torn a little bit. I get it. I get where you're coming from. I don't blame him for this decision, but he's lost the benefit of the doubt in his decision making.
Well, and I think if he would have come to the conclusion that they needed to stay and fix this, without Sean guilting him into it, I might buy the decision for him to go a little bit, because he's like, hey, but he basically got convinced to stick around to do it now. by somebody that I still feel like he should be like, you know what? Like you said, there's 4 other people that are very capable of flying with this because he's not doing anything. He's not doing anything sciencey that he has to particularly do himself to
He
make
just
this
got to
happen.
stay alive. Yeah.
He's got to fly. He's got to rocketeer himself around
Well, he's
with a
actually
magic
the only one that does have.
boombox.
I think he's the only one. That suit that he stole from the other Grant is the only one that actually has like the jetpack, I think.
Okay, well, so that plays a little bit into it then.
Yeah. I don't think the rest of them have jetpacks.
Well, and so the very beginning of the next issue tips Grant right back into the self-centered asshole scale.
Oh, yeah. When we see his background conversation, how he recruited Sean. Yeah.
Just completely using him, trying to make it sound like, oh, man, you don't need that degree. You know, blah, 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 blah. Come work for me.
Oh, he's a pretentious a-hole. He's absolutely a pretentious a-hole. Yeah.
I don't like him. I am on team anybody but Grants.
Well, yeah.
And
I mean,
and
we even
meanwhile,
get
what
that
about
here at the beginning of 15. After he makes his choice, we get his pretentiousness with Sean, and then we get Kadir. Like Kadir and Pia are going at each other, and yeah, she's still got her bird hair, but and even Kadir's like, "That's good. You're angry. You have every right to be, but maybe you're not mad at me. Maybe you're upset your father once again prioritized other people over his own children." Like, you know, that's the funny thing about Kadir is he's like, again, none of these people are good people except for maybe Sean of the adults in the room. Like, none of these adults are, or anything but a mess.
And what about the little schlub of an alien critter?
He doesn't even really interact this whole time. They just drug this poor thing along. Kind of like the shaman. They just drug him along.
I have a feeling he's going to come in handy later.
Probably. So Grant decides to go play hero. And Kadir and them are having an argument. Meanwhile, we see at least someone from the Legion has kind of tracked them down while everyone else is hunting Grant. And we get the shaman having his conversation. And this kind of jumps back and forth here as we go through this issue, but because we get a lot of following Grant around as he's trying to cure the world and that kind of stuff. And we get the shaman making his decision that no, this has to stop. Which, before I say what I think of it, what do you guys think of the shaman taking his stand here that they can't go this has to end. Like we can't do this no more. Greg, I'll let you go first this time. I made you wait last time.
I respect it from the decision of what the shaman's beliefs are, right? Of where I can see where he's coming from. I felt like it also was going to add like tension, obviously, because nobody else was going to think it's a good idea. And so I was okay with how everything happened with that storyline because I assumed, I don't know if I would have agreed, if I was a dad, and Grant's not even there in this time to argue this one, but, Pia's like, I'm trying to see my mom. Like, I haven't seen my real mom and so I get why people would be like, no, but I also do get the shaman's like, listen, we've done what we've done. We need to our fate is sealed. We need to stop adding anything to it. So I was okay with the shaman's decision. I don't know if I was one of the members, I probably would have been like, nah, bro, like we need to get back to our family. Like, so yeah.
Before you go, I'm just going to say there is an interesting dichotomy there. And now I've lost my train of thought as I was going to interject because I wanted to get your response to he's like, we have to stop this. sorry, you can't go home. Like, this has to end. But he knows that them ending it doesn't end anything. Like, because they know there's other versions that are traveling and effing all this up. So what is he accomplishing, I guess, with his stand here? But he does have there's a really good line. He's like, yeah, but we're going to end this version because you people can't make good. All your decisions are terrible.
Well,
so
I think I'll let Unruly's talk here in a second. I guess to answer that, the counter to that, I would say that's very much of a whether you feel like you know what you do is insignificant or not, right? Like, and I'm not going to get political here, but that's why people are like, how many times people go like, I don't think my vote matters. Like, I'm insignificant in a pond of even if I vote for what candidate I think wants to do this, it still is going to, negate nothing. It's not going to change anything. Like, if I don't, there's millions of but like for at least like you vote because you feel like you're doing what you feel is the right move. And I feel like this is kind of the case with the shaman of like, like it might not impact there still might be bad stuff happening, but at least for my consciousness
won't make any more mistakes.
Right. We will do what we at least feel like we're contributing to being a solution to the problem. Whether there's still problems going on, we're not going to contribute anymore to that. So we're going to kind of say, even though it might be insignificant as it's still going to happen, I'm going to stake my claim here.
Yeah. Unruly, what about you? What do you think about the shaman's argument that they need to stop?
Well, this is a version of selfishness.
Mm-hmm.
We're known forever by the tracks we leave, and mine will no longer be stained by blood.
Yeah.
And he's got the luxury of being old. Because I can totally see his point of view. I would like to believe that I'm a good enough person to make that sort of decision and stand by it. But I'm old. If I was 23 or, even younger like the kids, hell no, I want to go the fuck home.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. He's seen his life, right? Like that's where, if I was 20 years younger or 20 years older, it would be a difference of I've lived my life, but yeah.
I mean, like, I totally get where he's coming from. And there's this whole thing of, like, and I threw that out there just because, like, ultimately, if you stop them, what are you really stopping if there's other versions doing this? And they're trying to stop it. But you have to believe that this group can actually make a difference. And I think he's of the meaning, like you guys are effing up everything you touch. Like, even if you have good intentions from here going forward, you had good intentions initially, and I bet all the other versions did too. And no, this is only evil. So I completely get where he's coming from. But you're right, it's a completely selfish decision on his part to make it for everyone else. But the end result is we see Rebecca get killed number 3 as now she's drowned a soldier. She impaled a version of Grant, and now she blows the shaman away. like not wound, not stop, like pure headshot. What did we think of Rebecca and seeing that side of her? Like, and I mean, literally, she's not like, this is not wound and stop. This is taking him out. What did you think of the reveal on the last page of this issue of Rebecca doing that? Unruly.
Well, she did what she felt like she had to do.
Yeah.
But and Rebecca might be the bad guy in the piece, or one of them, but I don't think she's a villain. Look at the expression on her face. She's horrified at what she did.
Yeah. What about you, Greg? What did you think?
Well, after I spent 5 minutes trying to decide if it was Pia or Rebecca that shot the shaman, because again, I was like, which one of the dark-haired girls shot
him? Yeah, because Pia's got her hair burned off, but they put the helmets on them, so you can't tell.
And so I'm looking at the picture. I'm like, I'm still like, I don't know, like, where was? I was like, oh, okay, but because then you see she's with Nate. So like again, this is where I'm starting to get a little bit of the art of the confusion takes out a little bit, because I'm spending so much time trying to like who was that? Who did that? That I don't get to soak. I don't know if it sounds weird, but like, I don't get to soak in the moment of the guy getting his head blown off. But like the shaman was a very integral part of the story so far. And in volume 2, you forgot he was there a lot, and then you're like, oh, when he shows up, you're like, yeah, I forgot about you, buddy. But yeah,
I will say, as much as I enjoy Scalera's art as a whole, this whole making these women look alike is definitely like a big detriment to the storytelling. Mm-hmm. Like it is a big struggle. All right, so we go to issue 16 and we get your favorite flashback that you already got to talk about here, Greg. Grant. We're flashing back to Grant realizing, man, we're not going to accomplish this goal. We keep failing. I'm done. I gotta go back to my family, and all it takes is her going, "I love you, Grant. Let's make out," and him being like, "All right, screw my family. I'm gonna keep working." I mean,
that's why I don't buy into him. Like, oh, I'm there for my family, and then something else comes along, he dips out again, right? Yeah. I get it. He thinks he's making the right move here to go save everyone with the magical box that just can heal everyone and anything. But it's just like, man, Grant, like, you can't change who you are, and you can, but I was just like, it lessened the. I think if you would have asked me that without reading that one, the moment about the flashback in issue 14, I'd be like, oh, like we're starting to see Grant change a little bit, but I'm like, oh, we've seen this before now in 16, so I'm going. It lessens the effect of that one from earlier.
And really, you didn't get to talk about this flashback earlier. What did you think of this flashback of how the relationship between Grant and Rebecca started?
I try not to judge men by the mistakes they've made when it comes to women. I mean, I can see every side of that issue, and I've made that mistake, and I've also refrained from making it. Every single one of us has a multitude of idiots inside us. But what I want to talk about is the battle between Kadir.
Okay, yeah, go there. That's next.
What's his name? The guy that died last.
Is it Wade? I think it's Wade.
I can't remember his name.
I think it was Wade.
But it's this universe's version of him.
Yeah,
and that's some great dialogue they have while they're fighting.
It says his name here.
And Kadir really has, I've seen past adolescent concepts like nobility. I deal in hard facts.
Yeah, Kadir is such a self-righteous. He's also a self-righteous.
It's Ward.
Ward, you're right.
That's it.
Yeah, Ward. So yeah, we see that the Ward from this universe is the one that's actually trying to hunt them and stop them. And we see, Kadir is... He and Grant are the same, like, hate each other, but they're so much alike.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, they're different, don't get me wrong, but the self-righteous, they both think they're just, So what else about
Kadir doesn't. I think Kadir has a degree of self-awareness and knowing who and what he is. More so than Grant.
Yeah. I would agree with that. I do. I think Kadir is at least like, he understands, like, I know I'm kind of a dick, and it's fine. And whereas Grant thinks he's the good guy.
Well, he does, because he even says at one point, he goes, I can be the hero that my son believes me to be. Like, like, where Kadir's like, listen, I know who I am.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
So
I feel like
Go ahead.
I feel like I've been negative a lot this issue, and this isn't going to help anymore with what I'm about to say. But I have enjoyed this volume. But I do feel like I'm sitting here nitpicking things. This is one of the first times I think I kind of have an issue with Remender's storytelling here, and it sounds so stupid for me to say this because I'm like, who am I? Like, because Rick Remender is a great storyteller and stuff. But this is where it again takes me out of the story a little bit of it's confusing now that we've had Grant who's died, who then comes back, and you spend 5 minutes in volume 2 going, we debated last time, is that the real Grant? Is that our Grant? Is this that like I had that debate for me now a little bit. I'm like, was this because the way even Kadir says like I was like, wait, is this our Ward? Like, did he survive somehow? Like, and I know he doesn't, but like it takes me out that I have
it's
to
the
like
multiverse thing, which
I have to do multiple gymnastics in my head of like, wait, dude. So this is part of where the storytelling is. I wish there was a way to be more distinct with, and it still might not be it, but like, I don't even know what you would do, but like where you can tell which Grant is which Grant and not just by outfit changes, whether it's like I don't know, but like this is where it just takes me out.
At this point, we're back to just the one version, but yeah, I get your like currently in the story, but yeah, every time one shows up, it gets confusing. It does,
right? So it just took me out of that moment a little bit with Ward going like, wait, is this the Ward that I was like, no, it can't be. Like he got.
It's not, but it's a Ward that knew Kadir. His version of Kadir was basically the same. I mean, realistically, the one thing that we've kind of realized is, for the most part, these people are all the same. Like all the different versions. Like we have not run into whatever the Justice Lords in DC where the good guys are evil and the bad guys are, we haven't run into that. They're all the same in all the multiverses. It's just tints of gray. They're all the same. Like all the Grants are making the same mistakes. All the Kadirs are making the same mistakes. Yeah, go ahead.
But we haven't run into that yet. But Infinity, which none of us can grasp, we can't grasp a fraction of it. And here's my theory. There is a Grant out there on the other side of the onion who didn't have an accident going through. He set it up. They got through with their homing beacon fine. He found something in the next dimension that could help life on Earth. He came back, made that change, and he's jumping through dimensions, doing what he said he wanted to do, helping spread goodwill, and maybe like, oh, this next dimension I'm jumping to doesn't have penicillin. Here you go. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And in that other side of Infinity, all the other Grants are making good decisions and leaving rifts in the Eververse where all the other Grants are being sucked along doing good things and having positive outcomes. And I'm wondering, and now I really don't believe this is what's going to happen, but if at some point later down the road, these two collide, all the good shit and all the bad stuff that we're reading now.
So far, the bad shit's winning. Let's just say that, at least in the corner we're seeing.
But this is the only tiny little slice of the.
I mean, we're following one version. Yeah, we're following one version of these people for sure. All right. So this brings us kind of to the big finale here that goes on for a while, which is we go back to while Grant's trying to do his heroics and save this world. Sean and Rebecca are trying to fix the pillar and also realizing that the shaman did enough that it's only really got one more jump in it. So they're trying to go home. And Sean's like, you're sending us to the wrong place. And we basically get a confrontation between them. And we see Rebecca, basically hit Sean upside the head, pull the gun, like we're going, and she's putting herself ahead of everybody else. So we see her true motivations of, yeah, she's willing to kill everybody to, to get to a world where her brother is, which is what this has all been about for her. What did you think of Rebecca's turn here? I mean, they kind of laid the groundwork for it, but her, turning on Sean and like, screw it, I'm not going home. I don't care about going home. So none of you are going home. I'm going to where I can see my brother. What did you think about this one, Greg?
They're all selfish, except for like Sean so far. Like all the adults are making selfish decisions. And again, who am I? Because if I was in Rebecca's shoes and I had that ability, I don't, would I do the same? And would I put other people? But like, I don't know. Like, so, it makes for an interesting story and a fun story to read, like with the twist there. But I don't want to label her necessarily a villain. But she is showing, signs that she had this as a plan from the get-go, the whole reason of why she's seducing him and why she's invested 10 years. So like, it's not it doesn't come off as like we found this, that this could possibly happen. Like when she had this understand, like it's been very thought out to me now. And so you're going a little bit from, like, is it preemptive murder or is it, in the heat of the moment murder, but yeah, it makes for interesting characters, not ones that I care about as much, but it makes for an interesting story.
What about you, Unruly? What do you think of Rebecca's little heel turn here?
But was it a heel turn?
I mean, she's willing to sacrifice everybody else for herself. So, like, yeah, for her own desires. So, I don't know. Heel turn's maybe not the right term, but yeah.
But everyone's been doing that right along.
Except for, as Greg said, except for Sean and the kids. Yeah.
Or Ward, and when they killed off
Ward
right away.
Back at originally Ward, yes.
I find the actual last 2 pages or 3 pages more interesting because Rebecca's going to do what she's going to do and it's going to propel the story.
Right.
I'm wondering if how this ends doesn't catch up with them.
Oh, it absolutely is. So yeah, we get Kadir stops her from doing what she's going to do. He's got the sword to her throat. Like, yeah, this is really about, and, we talk about, I said heel turn, but it's no different than the Grant 2 and Sarah 2 that we saw that came to take the kids because, I mean, they were doing exactly what Rebecca's doing. Like, trying to find another version of what they lost. Mm-hmm. But, of course, Grant comes back and completely misreads the situation. Like, Sean's not breathing. He sees Kadir holding a sword to Rebecca. And he instantly, of course, blames Kadir. And Pia's trying to tell him, like, Kadir and Pia are both trying to tell him. And he, of course, stabs Kadir before. It wasn't him. He didn't do it. Rebecca did it. And Grant's like, what? And, and they jumped, clearly going wherever Rebecca wants them to go. So, and then we'll get to the aftermath. We'll wrap that up in just a second. So what did you think? I mean, that whole sequence, Kadir, which I feel like is a theme for him, is he's tried to do the right thing a couple of times, and it's every time completely backfired on Kadir. For sure. Not that he doesn't deserve it, because he's not always trying to do the right thing, but what did you think about how that ended in terms of, yeah, we're propelling the story. We're going where Rebecca wanted us to go.
I loved it. And so Kadir has just taken a sword to the chest. Sean's not breathing, but wherever they wind up, Grant still got the magic box.
He does still have the magic box. Greg, go ahead. You're chomping at the bit here. I can tell.
I liked it from a story point because that was one of those, oh, like moments. Again, this is Grant acting on impulse, like he's done every other thing, and this is why every single time it hasn't bode well for him.
No, but I will say, like, if I'm Grant, and I realize I would hope I hadn't made as many stupid ass decisions as Grant had made. But if I'm coming back into that situation, knowing Kadir was the person that originally sabotaged us, knowing what Kadir has done, and at this point he hasn't had a reason to doubt Rebecca. She's manipulated him, and he's too blind to see it. But like, I probably, if I come back and the shaman's dead, Sean's on the ground, and Kadir's holding a sword to Rebecca's throat, I'm probably making an assumption too. Like, that's just me. But I don't not knock him for this particular decision. Although, yeah, like, and he doesn't like Kadir. Like, so they've already fought to the death once, basically. Like, or we're going to. So I get it. But you're right. It's impulse. It's dumb. He doesn't figure out what's going on. He just reacts.
Yeah, I feel like I've turned this show into turning you into a Grant apologist and me anti-Grant, and I apologize for that. But again, this is where it's like, for Grant acting on the impulse, like, what was it? Volume 1, at the end of volume 1, he tells the Kadir, like, look after my kids, take care of my kids, like,
yeah.
So there is enough of a relationship there. Like,
after they tried to kill each other. So,
right. Like, but I don't know. Like, there is a moment where it's like, I get the impulse, but the impulse to kill, obviously you do that with to tell the story and move the story along. Here, it just feels like it makes Grant even worse of like, I'd be defending, but I don't know if I'd go right to killing, until I at least.
If he comes back and he thinks Sean's dead and he thinks the shaman is dead, and like, I get it. I get where you're coming from. Grant is not like making smart decisions. I'm not arguing with that, but I do think you're being a little harsh on every decision.
I am. The problem. This just shows you an insight into me.
Yeah,
I am very much. That's just how it's a red flag of how I'm wired. Of like, I will be the most loyal person to you, but if I constantly see you wronging and the wrong, like, it's once you lose my trust, it takes a lot to get back. Yeah. So, like, that's just is how I'm wired as a human being. Like, I will be there for you 100%. But like, if you've done enough stupid stuff that makes me not trust you, I go right to then. You don't get the benefit of the doubt from me anymore. And that's Grant has lost the benefit of the doubt for me here. So every decision, I'm harder on him because he's lost it for me.
Yeah. All right. So gets us to the big finale, which is like the Legionnaires realize, like, they escape, they leave the dimension. Ward and the Legionnaires are like, wait, it's gone. They fixed it. Like, the disease is gone. They're like celebrating, like, oh my gosh. And of course, instantly a portal opens, and Chandra, who we haven't seen this whole volume because she got infected by the gas people, and controlled, and stole one of the pillars. The pillar Grant used to catch up to them. Or no, I don't remember which pillar. Or she stole Sarah 2's pillar, I think.
Yeah.
And she shows up, and the gas people come through and take over this entire dimension. Yeah, that's not going to go well. What did you think of that twist at the end? So we didn't end with the clicking clock. We ended with, oh, crap. Another consequence of them. So they saved this world and then still doomed it because of their actions. They saved them from one fate to give them a different, just as bad fate, probably. Unruly. I'm going to let Greg go. I'll let Unruly have last words on this. I'm going to let Greg go this time.
This is, I'm glad we do these shows because I completely forgot who that was. She has been such a forgettable character to me.
She really hasn't had a part for the most part, other than she was
Kadir's
accomplice.
I remember I read that today and I was like, who is this? I couldn't. Until you said, "Oh,
it's been that long since we did this."
But it still is. I mean, I'm looking in the second volume, and she's really not even in the second volume very much, except for a couple points to remind you that she has a. So, like, listen, I read so much comics throughout the week that we're what?
It's hard to keep track. Yeah.
Yeah. So from 7 to what is this now? 16. We have not seen her very much, so she has lost. I didn't know who she was, so it lost its impact for me.
Okay, so it did not have. You'd forgot that she got infected and she was part of their crew, and
yeah. So I was just like, "Oh, who is this? Have we met this character?" I was like, "Oh, bad stuff's happening." But now, like, I'm like, "Oh yeah, that's right." So,
okay. Unruly, what about you? What did the last 3 pages impact on you? You said that was the big.
To be honest, she's more interesting as being controlled by one of these gas beings than she was on her own.
She didn't have he had not given her a personality on her own, other than she was Kadir's accomplice. That was it. That was all we knew beforehand. So, yeah.
But I love it, man. I love when the bad guys win every once in a while. And I don't know that they're necessarily bad. I mean, you can't. These gas beings, they seem to think they need bodies to control.
They need to have a host, is what they portray.
They're just doing what they do.
And you saw in like Grant's flashback, they were trying to leave the world they were on, where they were controlling all the monkey people, was dying. So they felt like they had to go somewhere else. But yeah, I mean, so are they evil or are they just, trying to survive like everything else? So it's, yeah. But clearly, these people that they just saved are no longer,
And now they've got a functioning pillar.
Yeah.
Who knows what's going to happen?
Yeah. And we didn't even see in this whole volume, the other people that got a functioning pillar at the volume 2 that wanted to spread their thing, the weird lizard people that were sacrificing everybody to death and like wanted to spread across the universe. We haven't even seen what they're doing with their pillar yet. So there's a lot of bad crap going on as a consequence of these fools. So, all right. Any final thoughts on this volume and the story to this point? Greg hates Grant, and he can't read another page with him on it, but he's going to keep reading. I think is where we're at. Is that?
Yeah, I hate Grant, but it's listen. This is I hope come what is it 9 volumes?
Mm-hmm.
I hope volume 9, we're talking here and I'm sitting here chatting. And I'm like, y'all, Grant's my dude. Grant, like, this is why Rick Remender's the man. Like, he crafted, because if he can turn me onto like Team Grant at the end, ooh, that's gonna be some writing. So
some writing.
Here's the deal. I've really enjoyed this. I had my issues with Deadly Class, going through the show where I didn't like moments. But I think that was just more of, there were issues that felt like that took me out of the experience. I haven't had that with this story. I just haven't loved this story and that's one of those. It's like, man, Deadly Class is one of his most talked about series. So you don't want to compare like, oh, it's not as good, but it's different, and I appreciate the differenceness of this story, and I am enjoying it as much as I've dogged on Grant. And if I was picking up in singles, I'd be reading this still monthly, going because I'm intrigued to know what's happening. Excuse me, and what's going on. But and I care about Sean. I care about the kids.
Yeah.
If I didn't care about them, I might not be as invested. But. Because I do get a little bit, but I'm not completely like, I know John is 100% that kind of guy. Like, if there's no redeemable characters, he's out. And I'm not completely like, because I still enjoyed Breaking Bad. But
no. What about you, Unruly? Where are you at on this through this volume?
I'm going to do something I have not done in any of the shows we've done. I've either already read it, or what was the last one we did? I can't even remember.
That you and I were on?
Yeah.
We were on you were on Sandman with me, right? And
Yeah.
And then we did Rachel Rising.
Okay, that was the last one we done. So this is the first one we've done that I hadn't read. So I am just going to, I'm only going to read the issues. I'm going to be in suspense until
just
the
like
last
us
moment.
Nice. Very cool. Well, hopefully we're planning to, I don't have much going on with the indie show at the moment because I've kind of just slowed down on my trying to organize and everything else. So we're mostly just going to read this fairly as quick as we can make it work instead of like, so I know Greg's got some stuff on his calendar and stuff, but yeah, we're going to try to do it in some clumps and try to crank through this in a few months rather than like a year. So is the goal. All right. I'm still in. I'm enjoying it. I think the comparison to Deadly Classes, I don't think these characters are as likable, but I do think the story is just as compelling in a lot of ways. Just, so I'm in. I'm digging it. I'm looking forward to Volume 4. We're hour and 20 minutes. Carlito and Perry might still be hanging around. Maybe Kenneth's still hanging around. Appreciate you guys. And we're going to get out of here. And we will catch you guys next time. Later.